I hereby double down.
How terrific.
Well, hello.
Welcome to TYT. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian, and we have a jam-packed show ahead for you today. We're going to have an interview with an individual who has started a political action committee specifically to beat pro-Israel candidates in various congressional races. Now, he's doing so from the right. And while I do think that his mission is an admirable one, it will be an interesting conversation. It's sometimes challenging, and I'm really looking forward to that. So we will be interviewing the founder of PAC in the second hour. In the first hour, we're going to talk about a lot of different things, including the latest revelations from the Epstein files. We're going to talk about the latest ICE-related updates out of Minneapolis and Minnesota overall. And just can't wait to share the news with you. As always, if you want to help support the show, you can do it for free simply by liking and sharing the stream if you're watching us live. You can also support us by becoming a paying member, tyt.com/join to become one, or you can just hit that join button if you're watching us on YouTube. All right, without further ado, let's give you an update on Iran. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to this roller coaster ride, especially the roller coaster we were dealing with today. Now, nuclear talks between the United States and Iran were collapsing as of this morning, and that was according to Axios reporter and Israeli insider Barak Ravid. Now, yesterday we had shared that the talks were supposed to take place this Friday, meaning in just a few days, in Istanbul, Turkey. Now, they were supposed to include Iran's foreign minister, along with Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. The inclusion of Kushner in particular is cause for concern, but I want to be very clear that I also don't have much faith in Witkoff either. Now, the tentative plans were very shaky, especially considering the fact that yesterday the Iranians said, maybe we don't want to meet in Istanbul, Turkey. We'd rather meet in Oman. And it was unclear whether or not the US was willing to accept those conditions. Iranians said on Tuesday, so that was just yesterday, that they wanted to move the talks to Oman and hold them in a bilateral format in order to ensure that they focused only on nuclear issues and not other matters like missiles that are priorities for the US and countries in the region. It's not really a priority for countries in the region. It's a priority for Israel. And since it's a priority for Israel, it is made a priority for the United States, which I don't think it should be. I think that trying to control whether or not Iran has missiles is ridiculous. Israel moving the goalposts on this is just so brazen because they don't want peace. They want to implement undoable, right? And when I say undoable, I'm not saying impossible, but they want to implement certain conditions that they know the Iranians are not going to agree to. And so as a result, the peace negotiations will fall apart, and that will pave the way for the United States to potentially go to war with Iran. That's what the Israelis want. Now, the United States did actually reject the suggestion initially, with an anonymous senior US official telling Axios, quote, "We told the Iranians it is this or nothing, and they said, okay, then nothing." So as of this morning, the talks were off. They weren't gonna happen. But then, out of nowhere, you have several Arab and Muslim countries coming together and lobbying the Trump administration real hard to continue attempting to pursue peace as opposed to war. So let's get to the details on that. So one US official is quoted as saying, quote, they, meaning Arab and Muslim countries in the region, they asked us to keep the meeting and listen to what the Iranians have to say. We have told the Arabs that we will do the meeting if they insist, but we are very skeptical. We're very skeptical. What are you skeptical about? Like, what are you skeptical about? Are you skeptical of Iran's intentions? Because Iran's been very clear and in the past have actually conceded and agreed to peace agreements in which they would not develop any nuclear weapons. They would not enrich uranium past the amount that's necessary for energy purposes. There were checks implemented in the so-called Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA. You had foreign countries able to go into Iran in order to oversee what's going on there to make sure that they're not developing nuclear weapons. But Donald Trump came in on the orders of Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israelis. And in 2018, he ripped the JCPOA up, which paved the way for Iran to enrich uranium and develop nuclear weapons. But here's the thing, I don't think Israel is actually concerned about Iran developing nuclear weapons. What Israel's concerned about is the fact that there is one country at this point in that region that serves as a check on Israel and its efforts, its real objectives in expanding its empire. And they don't like that. They don't want any challenges. And so they're gonna get the United States, much as they've done in the past, to essentially do their dirty work for them. And if Donald Trump loved this country, prioritized our people, he would just reject that fully. But it seems very easy to manipulate him, and the Israelis are real good at manipulation. So with that in mind, it also doesn't help that Israel is in fact involved in some of the internal backdoor discussions that are taking place right now. So for instance, on Tuesday, Witkoff, meaning Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, landed in Israel for talks about Iran with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the head of Israel's Mossad spy agency, David Barnea, as well as other security chiefs, according to two Israeli officials. Well, I mean, look, I know that every single political operative and politician in this country, with the exception of maybe Zoran Mamdani, who's a local politician. Everyone else, and Thomas Massie to be fair, and Ro Khanna to be fair, other than that, they all get dog walked by Israel. So meeting with Israel is just meeting with them so you can jot down their orders. So I don't really have much hope when we're taking their advice or taking their orders on this matter. On top of that, a succession of Israeli spies and generals, including Israel Defense Forces Chief of Staff, General Eyal Zamir, have visited DC in recent days. Zamir briefed Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane on Israel's offensive and defensive plans in the event of war with Iran. Now, in a recent interview with CNN, Iran's foreign minister made sure to emphasize that the Iranians learned quite a bit from the 12-day war that took place over this past summer. They learned what their vulnerabilities are, they learned what their weaknesses happen to be, and as a result, they have strengthened their offensive capabilities. That's something to keep in mind as we barrel closer to a hot war with Iran, which I genuinely think we should avoid at all costs. Now, furthermore, a US official who was present for that meeting told Axios that it's really the Israelis who want to strike. The president is just not there. Listen, the president is there, okay? The president, first of all, let me just say this. Donald Trump is not driven by any principles or ideology. Donald Trump just dopily exists and he's like a bull in the china shop that's easily manipulated based on money, based on the last person who was in the room speaking with him. So he can be moved on this issue. The idea that Trump is anti-war at this point is literally the most laughable thing I've ever heard about Donald Trump in particular. I think even his supporters will agree, ain't nothing anti-war about that guy, okay? So, and it doesn't, look, it doesn't mean the usual suspects aren't working overtime, to pressure Trump to advance toward a war on Iran anyway. So I'm gonna start off with this interview, this exchange that happened with NBC News reporter. I thought this was fascinating because if you listen to the framing of the question, you can get a sense for why corporate media is considered pro-war media. Take a look.
As you know, they're negotiating with us.
I know they are, but the protesters have said, where are the Americans? You promised them we would have their back. Do we still have their back?
Well, we've had their back, and look, that country's a mess right now because of us. We went in, we wiped out their nuclear.
What's the deal about? I mean, if there's no more, are they trying to restart the nuclear program?
Well, I heard that they are, and if they do, and I let them know, if they do, we're going to send them right back and do their job again.
So your understanding is they tried to restart it, and that's why you're threatening force?
They tried to go back to the site. They weren't even able to get near it. There was total obliteration. But they were thinking about starting a new site in a different part of the country. We found out about it. I said, you do that, we're going to do very bad things to you.
If Trump genuinely believes that the US obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities, then Iran is not a threat to Israel, which, by the way, I don't even care about that. That's not my priority. Just as it's not my priority to be concerned about the national security of any other foreign country. Okay, so if you care for some reason about the safety and security of Israel, well, you shouldn't worry about nuclear weapons because Iran doesn't have them. Okay, in the case of the United States, it matters even more whether or not Iran is a threat to our national security. And Iran is not a threat to our national security. If we want to preserve American lives, the best way to do it is to avoid fighting a war with Iran on behalf of Israel. Let's be very clear about that. Now, on top of that, let's check in with Mark Levin. I read this post to you all yesterday, but in case you missed it, he had said, how about this time we listen to Bibi, meaning Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, rather than dictate to him? I'm sorry, can you explain to me why the American people or the American government needs to have a foreign leader dictate our foreign policy? Why would we need to listen to him? He continues though. Of course he's right. The Iranian Nazi Islamist mass murdering genocidal regime cannot be trusted to keep its word, basic stuff. Every accusation is an admission. This is a great example of that. You want to talk about genocide? You want to talk about genocide. Okay. Now, with that in mind, I just want to remind everybody that our government actually has taken demands and commands from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the past. And I just want to remind you all of how that worked out for us. Let's take a look.
If you take away the Soviet Union and its chief proxy, the PLO, international terrorism would collapse.
If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. Obviously, we'd like to see a regime change, at least I would, in Iran, just as I would like to see in Iraq. The question now is a practical question. What is the best place to proceed? It's not a question of whether Iraq's regime should be taken out, but when should it be taken out?
Are there any other nations that you would recommend that the United States launch preemptive attacks upon at this point?
The answer is categorically yes. The two nations that are vying, competing with each other, who will be the first to achieve nuclear weapons, is Iraq and Iran. A third nation, by the way, is Libya as well. Libya is trying very rapidly to build an atomic bomb capability. We'll stand together to stop Iran's march of conquest, subjugation, and terror. I know that no matter on which side of the aisle you sit, you stand with Israel.
I personally do not. And part of the reason why is because of what Israel has carried out in Gaza, continues to carry out in Gaza and the West Bank. And I'm sorry, I can't co-sign onto a foreign government that has carried out the mass slaughter of innocents and has done so in this effort to expand empire, to steal land. But with that in mind, he mentioned a lot of different countries there. He mentioned Iraq, which we did a preemptive invasion of in 2003 and didn't work out so well for us, did it? Thousands of our men and women died as a result of that preemptive, ridiculous war. Libya, after overthrowing Muammar Gaddafi, something Israel desperately wanted. What's the condition of Libya right now? Oh yeah, that's right. They're engaging in slave trade. So destabilize that country. What about Syria? at the behest of the Israelis, the United States, under Obama, by the way, began arming Al-Qaeda and offshoots of Al-Qaeda. And now we have a former Al-Qaeda terrorist, allegedly, serving as the leader of Syria. How does that benefit the United States in any way, shape, or form? Can someone explain that to me? So yeah, Mark, unfortunately, our bonehead politicians who are easily corrupted did take Bibi's advice. They did allow themselves to be dictated by a foreign leader. And they did so at the detriment of the American people and the US economy. Finally, I turn to the Wall Street Journal, because if ever you want to look for pressure toward any administration to go to war, you will find it among the writers over at the Wall Street Journal editorial board. In fact, they just published a piece titled, "The Deal in Iran is Regime Change." So like when they tell you who they are, just believe them, okay? Because the whole point of this is that, yeah, whatever. Look, let's stop the charade here, okay? Let's just stop. This has nothing to do with weapons. This has nothing to do with nuclear weapons, missiles. This has nothing to do with those protesters. We don't really care about those protesters at all. Just like we don't care about, Middle Eastern women and how they're treated by their government. Our country doesn't care. Look at how our country treats our protesters. What the Wall Street Journal is trying to say here is, no, we want regime change, okay? Like, let's stop pretending. And I appreciate the fact that they don't want to pretend, okay? Because it's insulting to our intelligence when these morons act as though we're gonna believe that they care about protesters in a foreign country. Anyway, here's what the Wall Street Journal writes. Again, this is the editorial board. Trump is sending mixed signals, but says he is open to a deal. Iran says talks are set for later this week. In Turkey, that's changed to Oman, by the way. Though the crucial question is, what is left to talk about? Let's just bomb. Why are we gonna have a conversation? So before June's 12-day war, Trump gave Ayatollah Ali Khamenei 2 months to dismantle his nuclear program. The supreme leader refused, so Jerusalem and Washington did it for them, burying Iran's nuclear material deep underground. I'd like to issue another correction. Jerusalem did not carry out strikes on Iran's nuclear sites. The United States did, our soldiers did. I continue. So why would the US get dragged into a war with Iran if, again, the US clearly has dismantled Iran's nuclear program? Well, concessions now on the enrichment of nuclear fuel, if the regime is even willing to make them, are far less meaningful. Tehran presumably would demand sanctions relief in return, but that would help the regime shore up its power with more money to fund repression. You want to know what's repressing the people of Iran right now? The artificially destroyed Iranian economy, thanks to our sanctions. So that's another point to bring up when anyone in our government or any Zionist who's trying to manipulate you into supporting our country going to war with a foreign country on behalf of Israel. You should mention, the sanctions have really hurt ordinary people in Iran. So if you're worried about their livelihoods, if you're worried about their quality of life, why would you defend sanctioning Iran as aggressively as the United States has? They don't actually care about the people there. But anyway, what message would that send to the Iranian people after so many risked their lives to protest? As Iranians know, this regime is willing to impoverish and endanger its own country to pursue a death to America and death to Israel foreign policy. It is a regime bent on spreading revolution, not on living peacefully with its neighbors. When has Iran spread its or attempted to spread its revolution outside of its borders? But seriously, someone answer that question. Iran would like to be left alone. And I think that on multiple occasions, it's been very clear that Iran doesn't want to go to war. They are willing to go out of their way to engage in peace negotiations. But to the Wall Street Journal's point about we can't take Iran's word for anything. Can Iran take the US's word for anything? The US pulled out of the JCPOA. Trump pretended like he was going to engage in good faith negotiations immediately before he proceeded to bomb Iran's nuclear sites. Like, how about we take a good hard look at our own conduct? And when I say our, of course, I mean the US government. And again, the country is impoverished because we have made it so. Our government has implemented just brutal sanctions that hurt Iran's economy. And finally, I'll just read one more excerpt. They say that there is a better way for President Trump. Help the protesters topple the Ayatollah and his enforcers. If Iran's revolutionary regime falls, the whole region gets better. China and Russia lose the third spoke in their axis of US adversaries. I remember the axis of evil arguments that were made by David Frum, George W. Bush's speechwriter, during the Bush administration, of course. And it's just amazing that they just recycle the same BS and think that the majority of Americans are gonna buy it. They're gonna totally support going to war with a country that doesn't actually pose a threat to the US at all. But to do so, again, on behalf of Israel, I think we've had enough. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll switch gears and talk a little bit about the latest news with ICE. Come right back. What's up, everyone? Welcome to our social break. Asimov's prophet says, how are these two guys doing negotiations for the United States, meaning Witkoff and Kushner? Don't you have to be an employee of the federal government to do that? Well, I think all bets are off when it comes to precedent, especially under the Trump administration. And I really do take issue. Look, Trump did name Steve Witkoff as his Middle East envoy, right? What really offends me, though, is the inclusion of Jared Kushner, who has proven to us on multiple occasions that he's not really interested in peace. He looks at the Middle East as a great business opportunity. He salivates over the blood-drenched soil of Gaza as prime real estate. Like, he's not a good person, and he has no interest in peace. These people are looters. They look at a crisis as an opportunity. Cabbage says, a fresh diaper makes all the difference to Trump's mood. Can we change his diaper more often then, if that's the case? Salt of the Union says Arab countries don't want regional war because it might give the people an opportunity to overthrow their puppet dictators. By the way, every once in a while, when we talk about, let's say, the UAE, and I talk about how the UAE is Israel's bitch, right? When I say that, I'm not talking about the people of the UAE. Generally speaking, ordinary civilians are pretty critical of what Israel's up to. It's just that Israel did a really good job getting the United States to topple regimes and bribe other countries to play nice with Israel, as we do with Egypt, so that's the reality of the situation. But Anna Farmer says Jared Kushner and Witkoff involved in peace deals or peace talks with Iran is a joke, zero relevant experience. Making real estate deals has zero to do with peace. Our country comes off as a joke. Yeah, I agree with you on that. It really does pain me because as flawed as the United States is, I really love this country. And it's just, I feel so embarrassed on the international stage. I hate everything that we've been told about what our country represents growing up. All of that has been flipped on its head with how the government actually carries out international relations, domestic policy, all sorts of things. All right, California Young Turks says, this little lady is ready for TYT. So glad to be here with you guys. We're so happy to have you. Thank you so much. And thank you to Anthony McClendon, who's been a TYT executive producer. That's a higher level member. 5 years as a TYT member, 6 as a viewer. It was one of your clips that brought me to TYT. Your knowledge and preparation impressed me, and your beauty didn't hurt either. LOL, keep being you and ignore the haters. I do ignore the haters. There are bigger fish to fry. And thank you so much for the support. We really, really appreciate it. And we wouldn't be able to do this without our members. We love you guys. All right, let's get back to the show.
Norway, Turkey, bacon.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Anna Kasparian, and I want to tell you about our partner because I want to help you save some money. Who am I talking about? Noble Mobile, of course. If you're tired of the doom scroll, as I think everyone should be at this point, you're not alone. The entire system is designed to keep you glued to your screen while the billionaire owners of big wireless profit from every minute you're on it. But what if you could break that cycle and get rewarded for it? Our partners at Noble Mobile have a revolutionary idea. They pay you to use your phone less. So their Noble plan, you actually end up getting unlimited data for just $50 a month. And you also right now, because you're a viewer of this show, will get $40 off your first month, meaning you're only gonna pay $10 for your first month. That's kind of amazing. Plus the unused data you don't use gets you cash back. So if you're paying over $50 for your wireless plan, there's really no reason for you to not switch. So please do so. Learn more by going to tyt.com/switch. Again, that's tyt.com/switch. All right, let's get to our next story.
Mr. President, speaking of Minneapolis, what did you learn?
I learned that maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch, but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals.
Following the 2 fatal shootings of American citizens Renee Good and Alex Preddy by immigration agents in Minnesota, President Trump, as you just heard, thinks that his administration could maybe use a softer touch. I just think that maybe keep civil rights, human rights, constitutional rights in mind as immigration agents carry out their jobs. It's not that difficult. You could enforce immigration laws without brutalizing people. And that includes undocumented people and American citizens as well. You could maybe stop going to court in order to nab people who show up to their court appointments as the asylum process plays out. Because that kind of deters others from following the law and showing up to court. It's very simple, but Trump has this idea in his head of what the typical undocumented immigrant in America is like. He thinks they're dangerous criminals, which I find ironic considering the fact that he just spent the last year providing cover for some of the worst criminals imaginable in the Epstein files. Actual pedophiles who prey on little kids. But anyway, I digress. During that same interview, Trump also alleged that Biden allowed, the number always goes up, it's kind of amazing, that Biden allowed 25 million undocumented immigrants to enter the country during his presidency. That number is grossly exaggerated. And look, Biden did let a lot of people into the country. I think if you just give people the accurate number, it's good enough. You don't have to make things up. The number is actually like closer to about 8 million people that Biden allowed into the country. No, 7.4. Let's read this graphic. During the Biden administration, 7.4 million undocumented immigrants crossed the border outside of legal checkpoints, and that's according to data from Customs and Border Protection. But look, we do have more good news, although I am cautiously optimistic even still, because Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, held a press conference today, and he said something that I think is going to be welcomed by the residents of Minnesota. And here's what I'm referring to.
We currently have an unprecedented number of counties communicating with us now.
and allowing ICE to take custody of illegal aliens before they hit the streets. Unprecedented cooperation. And I'll say it again. This is efficient, requires only 1 or 2 officers to assume custody of a criminal alien target rather than 8 or 10 officers going into the community and arresting that public safety threat. More officers taking custody of criminal aliens directly from the jails means less officers on the street doing criminal operations. This is smart law enforcement, not less law enforcement. I have announced effective immediately, we will draw down 700 people effective today. 700 law enforcement personnel.
That's obviously good news. Now, obviously, I want to warn you all that the Trump administration did such a massive surge of federal agents into the state of Minnesota that even after 700 federal agents are withdrawn from the state, there will still be 2,000 federal agents operating out of the state of Minnesota. But the good news here is that it does appear that Tom Homan has kind of approached the state and the county in which Minneapolis is located, to engage in like some negotiations with them, to find ways to collaborate and work together in order to minimize what we've been seeing on the streets, to mitigate some of the violence that we've been seeing on the streets. And that's a good thing. Hopefully it holds. And so the concession that Homan says that he received was that the county has agreed to abide by these detainers, right? So if someone is here undocumented, they commit a crime, they get convicted of the crime, and they're sentenced to prison, what the county is willing to do is hold on to that individual so immigration enforcement can deport them. I guess previously the county, not the state. Apparently, according to Tom Homan, the state has always complied with that, but the county did not comply with that. And so since he was able to get that concession, he's saying, I'm gonna withdraw 700 of these federal agents. That's a good thing. And by the way, I think most reasonable people can agree, if you are here and you're not documented and you're committing crimes that are serious enough to get you a prison sentence, you should probably be deported. I don't have a problem with those people being deported at all. Now, there is more to this story that I wanna get to because there is a lot of dysfunction still, as you can imagine, when it comes to how our immigration system functions, how people are processed, for instance. And nothing makes that clearer than this amazing interaction that a federal prosecutor had with a federal judge recently. So I want to read some excerpts from this New York Times piece because it's kind of amazing. So prosecutor Julie T. Lee told a judge during a hearing on Tuesday in federal district court in St. Paul that she and other colleagues in the local US attorney's office were completely overwhelmed by the number of cases they had been forced to handle because of the White House's widespread immigration sweeps in Minnesota. Now remember, while the Trump administration is happy to provide a lot more funding to ICE, which includes, by the way, $50,000 signing bonuses for new ICE agents. What hasn't been funded is the immigration judges and also the prosecutors necessary to deal with these cases. And so at one point, she says that she was overseeing 90 immigration cases. At one point, she sardonically, let's take a look at that. She sardonically, at one point she sardonically told the judge that she would welcome being held in contempt of court because it would allow her to get a good night's sleep. Been there, definitely been there. Okay, there have been times where you get that little jury duty notification, and I'm just like, please pick me, please. They don't pick me. Jury duty is great, by the way, but for her, obviously, she's kind of making a joke. She's making a point about how overworked she is because of the 90 immigration cases she's overseeing. Now, her statements came as a response to the judge grilling her over the fact that, the Trump administration is not complying with his orders. So the judge is Jerry Blackwell, and apparently he was complaining about the fact that in 5 separate cases to free immigrants that had been illegally detained, like they were supposed to be released and the Trump administration didn't release them. And so she was responding to that. And so here's what she said. I can't believe this is a federal prosecutor. What do you want me to do? The system sucks. This job sucks. And I'm trying every breath that I have so that I can get you what you need. Fixing a system, a broken system, this part I actually fully agree with. Fixing a system, a broken system, I don't have a magic button to do it. I don't have the power or the voice to do it. I only can do it within the ability and the capacity that I have. Anyway, she has since been fired. So we have less federal prosecutors to oversee these immigration cases, which is insane. But I do also kind of feel for her because we do have a broken immigration system. You can't fix it through executive order in the executive branch, okay? That's not enough. You need to codify immigration laws. You need to codify reforms through Congress. But Congress is useless. If Congress isn't holding like kabuki theater hearings or fundraising, I mean, what else would they be doing? Or, engaging in government funding nonsense. Like it's just endless. They're so useless. So what we're seeing right now is a dereliction of duty when it comes to Congress, a major branch of our system of government. And as a result of that, everything gets done through executive orders. And if you happen to be on the right and you love what Trump has been doing on immigration policies through executive orders, I disagree with you vehemently. But let me just say, who's to say that a Democrat isn't going to get elected next and just reverse everything? That's how it works. If you want actual lasting power when it comes to how we do immigration enforcement, you do it by codifying laws through legislation. So that's where we're at with the latest Border Patrol and ICE updates. We've got a little more time for this segment, but honestly, I'm about to talk about the latest revelations from the Epstein files. It's going to take me some time. So let's take our break a little early. And when we come back, my response to Batyar Ungar Sargon's comments on CNN last night.
Can use a little bit of a softer touch. A little bit of a softer touch.
All right, we actually have a live update on the segment I just did, and this is important. So Itchy Brother Dragon says, I'm here in Minneapolis. Newsflash, nothing has changed. The US Attorney's Office is overwhelmed. ICE is arresting observers at gunpoint. They're reducing from 3,000 agents to 2,300. That's right. I mean, I mentioned that withdrawing 700 agents comes nowhere close to, withdrawing all of the federal agents that were sent to Minnesota, not just Minneapolis. But they are not changing their policies, period. Itchy Brother Dragon, keep writing in. If you don't mind, if you do manage to capture some video, you can send it to us. We'd be happy to use it. You can send it to us at pitches@tyt.com. All right, let's go to our members. We have the only Mel who says, Anna, you're glowing again. You make me want to do my makeup in a way better fashion than I usually do. If I wasn't on air, I would literally never wear makeup. I'm so sick of wearing makeup, but thank you, I appreciate that. Brick House Mama says, my high schooler participated in a school walkout protest today in Texas. I went to support him and pick him up. Proud of these kids for standing up. I love that so much. You must be so proud. Solo Rick says, Cenk and Anna are both hardworking Americans and stand up for our country and not the foreign one that runs our country. I'm sick and tired of seeing what's happening in Gaza and we fund it all. Yes, yes. I just don't know how people are able to function and like not feel the rage that I'm feeling every single day. Like with everything that's been happening, especially over the last like 2.5 years. How do you maintain the rage? All right, let's go to our super chats where Konstantin Kaviris says, Happy Friday. What? It's only Tuesday. Well, if I keep trying, I'll get it right one of these. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Luckily, it's not Tuesday. It's Wednesday, but it's not Friday either. And that's not so lucky. And thank you to America 1776 USA for the super chat. All right, we've got a minute left. I can read more comments. Let's go to Kevin Shea, who says it is horrible that we supply weapons to anyone. I think like in some instances, very narrow instances, defensive weapons might make sense. But you'd have to persuade me, right? Like, it's not like I would do a blanket yes on defensive weapons to foreign countries. I don't think we should be providing offensive weapons at all at this point. It's never worked out in our benefit and has always turned around to bite us in the ass. Let's go to more of our members. These are our TYT.com members. We've got E. James on 91. Mad props to Marjorie Taylor Greene this week. I saw her statement that MAGA was a lie the whole time and its sole purpose is to serve donors. When a former cult member becomes a whistleblower, they get attacked. So she deserves a lot of credit for putting her safety and well-being at risk. Thank you. I agree with you. And when someone admits they were wrong, they should be rewarded for that, okay, not punished. That's my take. Okay, can I just say, nothing makes me happier than seeing someone in our audience agree with a hot take of mine that I know isn't gonna be popular. And the hot take today was, I love jury duty. Jury duty is great. Most people roll their eyes. But Kaj, in our member section, disagrees with all of you who are like, boo, jury duty, we hate it. I am so with Anna on jury duty. I remember each time I served, you're so lucky you got to do it more than once, and was so involved, love it, and you, Anna. If you're lucky enough to get chosen for a criminal case, you will get involved, okay? You will get sucked in. It's an amazing process and it's your civic duty. You know, it is a good time. So don't look at jury duty as a bad thing. All right, let's get to our next story.
I'm just, okay, I really agree with the president. I think that most Americans just do not care about this. This has been an obsession of elites on the right and now elites on the left. Elites on the right were obsessed with it when they thought they could use it to hurt leftists, and now the left is obsessed with it because they think they can use it to hurt the right.
Elites are the ones who are obsessed with the Epstein files? Aren't the elites the ones raping the kids? Batya, you know what you're doing. We all know what you're doing. You're not a dumb girl. So don't present yourself as one. But anyway, Batya Ungar Sargon has declared that ordinary Americans don't care about the Epstein files, meaning that Americans aren't worried at all about the fact that society's elite, including those with political power, are either pedophiles or have provided cover for pedophiles for years. And she's wrong about that. In case she was acting in good faith, which I am very suspicious of, an October 2025 PBS NPR Marist poll found that 75% of Americans want the full file release immediately. And we still haven't gotten that, by the way. There's still 3 million files that the DOJ under the Trump administration is refusing to release. And of the files that have been released, as we all know, because we've been pouring through them, they're heavily redacted. And while they failed to redact the names of the Epstein survivors, which I think would have been the priority, they redacted the names of the predators in the files. Interesting. Anyway, so let's talk a little more about what's going on here, because she had more to say about what we have discovered or haven't discovered in the Epstein files. Let's take a look.
So far, there has been no evidence of that. I'm looking through all of the documents, and so far there is still no evidence. I'm open to it. If you listen to me, I just feel like it's like the obsession. I mean, bringing the Clintons in, it's ridiculous. Right.
I don't think bringing the Clintons in to testify is ridiculous at all. because clearly Bill Clinton's name shows up quite a bit in the Epstein files, and asking questions is the right thing to do when we're talking about a long-running pedophile ring that led to Epstein securing a sweetheart deal where he gets to leave the prison during the day. I mean, obviously, this is a deep issue that has led to quite a bit of distrust among Americans when it comes to our own institutions. And you can't have a country function appropriately when its people don't trust its leaders. And that's where we're at right now. But there's no evidence of criminality from what we've seen. First of all, last Friday, Trump's DOJ released around 3 million documents. We're still pouring through them. And every day there are more and more findings that cause so much despair, honestly, for me, because it's like, oh my God, like the whole system needs to be burnt down and rebuilt again. Okay, like I don't think that reform is gonna help. Like our system is so deeply corrupt and broken. But she's like, no, I mean, we haven't, no evidence of any criminality. Okay, then I'll give you some examples. These are some of the more recent revelations that we haven't talked about on the show yet. But you know, I will remind you, one of the things we talked about earlier this week was the diary of the 16-year-old Epstein survivor. And so she is writing down what is happening to her in real time. And she said that she was made to be an incubator for Epstein, meaning she kept getting pregnant in some cases, forced to give birth, and they would take the baby away. And she would write about the pain she felt as they would take the baby away from her. And then she would write in a very detailed way about the abortions she was forced to have. No evidence of criminality. Now, she could be lying in her diary. You could make that point. But to say that it was just Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell that were preying on people, no one else. There's no evidence. There's no indication. There's no probable cause that anyone else was involved. That 16-year-old, by the way, mentioned Leon Black, financier, as someone who allegedly assaulted her, raped her. But no evidence, according to Batiar Ungar Sargon. All right, then there's this revelation. Annabelle, a British woman who, like Ghislaine Maxwell, appeared to procure the right type of girls for Jeffrey Epstein. Now, look, this in and of itself is not proof of wrongdoing. Like, you're not gonna get a conviction based on this email alone. But there's so many messages like this that lead to questions, right? So I'm gonna read it to you. Hi, Jeffrey. So I am putting a little group of girls together. Hopefully one of them will have the right qualities you desire. Wish I was 20 years younger and could speak French. I have to say that a few of my girls who would be perfect for the job, but are unfortunately past their sell-by date, would have dropped their husband and almost children to do the job when I asked them. Okay, so you get the point. So the real question here is, okay, is this a woman who was supplying Epstein and the rest of these predators with underage girls? I don't know. But rational people who care about justice, people who want justice for the survivors would read an email exchange like that. And they would want to know, was that appropriately investigated? Who was this woman? More importantly, why was this woman's name redacted? Why was her name redacted, but the names of the survivors weren't redacted? There's more. By the way, that email was sent by a British socialite. Okay, so in another email exchange between Epstein and hedge fund executive Tancredi Marchiolo, he sounds Italian, which pains me, but nonetheless, Epstein says this: what do you want me to do with your friend? This is an email from September 8th, 2011. Tancredi responds, hit on her. Okay, to which Epstein responds, do you want me to try to do her or just torture her? Torture comes up a lot in Epstein's emails, by the way. Someone had apparently sent him a torture video and he responded by saying, loved the torture video. No evidence of criminality. Anyway, someone who is redacted in the files sent Epstein an email in March of 2011 to say this: "Your littlest girl was a little naughty." But according to Batyar Ungar Sargon, nothing to be concerned about in the latest tranche of emails and documents that have been released. By the way, I like focusing on the emails because, the documents are a mix of FBI documents in which they're fielding calls from people making allegations. And really, you have no way, we don't have the ability to prove that what's being alleged actually happened. I read the FBI documents, don't get me wrong, it's not like I dismiss them. But I like the emails a lot more because these are actual exchanges. You're reading what Epstein himself is saying. You're reading what Epstein's co-conspirators are saying in these emails, right? And so no one forced Epstein to say these disgusting things. And no one forced the various people he was communicating with, many of whom have been redacted, to say the hideous things that they say in these emails. Let's go to some more. All right, another redacted person wrote to Epstein on February 2nd of 2015. Let's take a quick look at this. All right, so hate letters pouring in off the Reuters piece. So Reuters had written about Epstein and I'm guessing others associated with him. One of which I answered, as you saw, but in a day or two, The Guardian will come out with a lengthier piece in which they tried to trap me and succeeded in good part because it was Sunday and I was already enjoying myself. Now, this is the part that you should be concerned about. We don't know who this person is. Their name is redacted, their email is redacted. But here's what they wrote to Epstein. "The key are the 14 to 15-year-old girls. I am a sexual pervert because I say they are now of reproductive age." Yes. Why are you even thinking about their reproductive age? Yeah. How about you don't think about that when it comes to 14 and 15-year-olds? But no evidence of potential criminality here. None. Nothing to be concerned about, according to Batyar Ungar Sargon. She really did better when she did what every other Israel defender / Zionist does. They just stayed quiet. They pretended like the drop didn't happen, that we didn't see a new tranche of Epstein documents. She did better under those conditions, right? That was a better strategy. But coming out and denying what we've all been reading for several days now it's a choice. It's crazy work. Now, I should note that Dershowitz infamously had penned an op-ed calling for the age of consent to be lowered to 15. So while we don't know the identity of the person who sent that email, it's very clear that Epstein had friends who believed that the age of consent, 18, was just, it's too old. Anyway, Epstein wrote a message to Les Wexner, right? The head honcho over at the brand that includes Victoria's Secret, right? So here's what he wrote. Les, I am truly sorry to hear that you have been the target of an extortion attempt by the same girl that has tried to extort Ehud Barak, former prime minister of Israel, Alan Dershowitz, and Prince Andrew. I guess that she is either using bottom feeder or she is being used by them. But he continues, there's more. I have never not once, done anything but protect your interests. I owe a great debt to you as, frankly, you owe to me. I was not surprised by your reticence to sit with me when my bad judgment with women became a cause célèbre. As I'm sure you recall, you didn't sit with your mother or sister or Sharon when a conflict arose, as I did it for you. You didn't sit with Jack Kessler, Stanley, or Stanley's son. I did it for you. I never asked to see you. I never sent you a request. Abigail is Les Wexner's wife. Abigail and I sat, she asked many questions. She made many unfair, aggressive, and false accusations, none of which could have been fully answered without violating a confidence with you, many of which I did not answer, some that I did. You and I had gang stuff for over 15 years, a great deal of it that she was aware of. Now, he continued to write, quote, "I had no intention of divulging any confidence of ours, no matter what accusations she made." Sounds like Les Wexner's wife found out about some of the partying that her husband was doing with Epstein, didn't like it, and had a bit of a heart-to-heart, tough conversation with Epstein about it. And here you have Epstein saying, like, "Don't worry, I didn't tell her anything, but we've done a lot of gang stuff and we never had any problems before." Okay, cool. No evidence of potential criminality here, Batya? None? You don't wonder about Les Wexner potentially, you know what I'm gonna ask you, violating minors? Look, I get that people who love Israel are going to pretend like what's happening right now isn't happening because they don't want to accept the fact that a disgusting predator, a pedophile like Jeffrey Epstein, was working for foreign intelligence services, especially Mossad, and that this was all a blackmail operation. I totally get that that's gonna make you really uneasy because you don't want to believe that your precious country, the country you care about so much, would deploy such a tactic in order to have power over US foreign policy. I just think you live a better life when you acknowledge reality, understand the difference between right and wrong, and don't provide cover for some of the most evil crap I've ever seen in my life. But here we are. In December of 2010, high-powered Hollywood publicist Peggy Siegel, who dated Epstein at one time, messages him to ask, on Diller, do I ask Diane von Furstenberg, that's who she's referring to, too? I know her very well. Want him or both of them? And Jeffrey Epstein responds, him preferably. He has been to the island many times. Now, who's Diller? That's Diane von Furstenberg's husband. And his name is Barry Diller specifically. And so he recently revealed in his memoir that, he came out as gay, right? And so they haven't separated or divorced. She accepts it, but they're still together. That doesn't really matter to me. What matters is you've been to Epstein's island. What did he say? Many times? Okay. What were you up to at the island? Has he been questioned about this? Diller has been in the news, was in the news in early 2026 for expressing interest in purchasing CNN from Warner Brothers Discovery, by the way, which I thought was interesting. But anyway, Peggy responds to that and says, thanks for the update, going to Diller alone. And then mentions other people that she invited who agreed to go to the island party, including George Stephanopoulos and Ollie Wentworth. That's a typo. Wentworth is Allie's name. Philip Roth, I've never met. Again, can call his editor or agent, want me to. So a lot of powerful, influential people, not just in the world of politics, but obviously also in media, were invited to Epstein's parties. We don't know what they were up to at these parties. I don't think it obviously means automatically that if George Stephanopoulos goes to an Epstein party, then he's doing something wrong. I mean, I wouldn't go to those parties, but maybe he got invited, didn't know what it was about, didn't do anything wrong. Who knows? But the point that I'm trying to make is there are a lot of names of powerful people included in what we have seen from these files. And more importantly, some of these email exchanges specifically communicate things that in the very least provide the probable cause for an investigation and potentially prosecution. I'm gonna read one more from Peggy Siegel. I literally can't believe she wrote this, but in a December 2009 email, she tells Epstein that she's gonna travel to Nairobi. And she asks Epstein, can I bring a little baby back for you or two? Boys or girls, so Madonna. Now look, she might be referring to rich and powerful people in the US adopting kids, from foreign countries. Or she could be referring to something else. I don't know. But I do know she's racist as hell. How do I know that? Well, on Christmas Day, 2010, She wrote the following email to Epstein. Now, this isn't criminal. You can be a racist if you want to be a racist. You're not going to go to prison for that. I'm just giving you a sense of the type of people Epstein was surrounding himself with. Now, she said something along the lines of, there are too many blacks at the Isle de France. There are no black locals, just black rock and roll New Yorkers as guests. It's very weird. This island has no history of plantations and no ghettos, just big fat black people on the beach. Yeah, classy, real classy. In another email exchange, she asked Epstein whether an event would be 100%, I'm quoting verbatim right now, quote, 100% Jew night, to which Epstein replied, quote, no, Goyim in abundance, JP Morgan execs, brilliant wasps. Great. And then finally, I'm sure Batya will be very pleased to learn that in Trump's first term, we were all led to believe that he was no longer communicating with Epstein. They had a big falling out. Well, one of the documents dating back to December 25th, again, Christmas Day, 2018, indicates that he had emailed Larry Summers saying that, asking him if he's going to visit Mar-a-Lago. Epstein responds by saying he's being asked for 3 names to replace Steve Mnuchin. Interesting. Why would the first Trump administration ask Jeffrey Epstein for potential candidates to replace, Steve Mnuchin if Trump and this guy weren't talking anymore? I don't know. Just a lot of things have been uncovered, Batya. It's just you either want to bury your head in the sand or you've been reading everything we've been reading and you just don't want to admit what's going on here. But it's not a good look. And quite frankly, I'm pretty sick of people in media in particular taking what journalism is supposed to be and perverting it into a pedophile protection racket. You could be supportive of Israel. I disagree with you fully on that, but you can be supportive of Israel while still simultaneously calling out the bad behavior, including this. Anyway, we got to take a break. When we come back for the second hour, lots to get to, including that interview with the founder of the Anti-Zionist Political Action Committee. That and more coming up. Don't miss it.
What contributions to the progressive cause are you most proud of? I mean, I don't have super high aspirations for a singular role that I can play in the movement or anything. I try to present myself as what I think that I am, which is a progressive man who is driven by I think, well-interrogated and well-organized system of values that I try to stay consistent on, and I demonstrate that that's the sort of life that a person can lead and be successful and be happy and all of that. And that should not need to be done, but there are so many people on the right that are trying to push men in the opposite direction that I want to be able to do that. Along the way, if I can get people to care about some topics that they wouldn't necessarily care about, or that for some men they might think that's not a topic that they should be focused on, that's definitely something that I relish doing. And along the way, I mean, we've been able to introduce people to a lot of candidates. That's been a big part of what we've done. Not all of them necessarily got in office. Probably most of them did not. And a lot of them you might not even remember their names. But it was great to be able to provide people the platform where they had the chance of, making a difference. Obviously AOC and all that, but there's been a lot of great people along the way.
In the bonus episode for the members, we do some inside baseball. We're gonna look at John's desk. Nice little spaceship here. Nerd, but it is kind of look cool. Who has Legos? Oh no, he's taken apart a keyboard. Who has a mouse pad that's this big? He's got a dog with a nose that you can hang something on. You know what this desk screams to me? Nerd. And that's how we like him. We love Johnny Pie. He's got his own personality like everybody does at TYT. Come meet us all in the bonus episodes. TYT.com/team.
David Soror, Nina Turner. Adam Green drop by.
Charlemagne.
Congressman, great to have you. It's great to be with you, Chang.
Your show is a great thing. You're informing people. A lot of the shows that I live on, my CNN, my MSNBC, and even Fox, and any of the other shows, NPR, they are so quick to decide that they know what this building means today.
The one thing that I hate that politicians do, they talk about the people they should be talking to.
Do they have any idea that they're the establishment and that they're hated, or do they not realize that at all?
People are so deeply in their little universe. I think it's very easy to not really question what you're doing.
Voters have a right to ask questions of any nominee, whether they're independent, Republican, or Democrat.
The system is duopoly that suppresses competition.
How is it the year 2024 and we're still like, maybe they'll talk about paid medical? Like, how is that like at one level, it's like, this is what we're talking about now. You're like, it's 2024.
And that's always been the critique, that your critique of us is, well, you guys give good speeches, you put out good tweets, but you're not wielding actual power. Now we're starting to.
My favorite news platform by far. It's not even close.
It's about a country and a principle, and that's what you and I both worked to achieve, and I'm so glad that at least half the battle has now been won.
If you want to go really hear what's going on honestly, you should tune into the Young Turks.
Thanks for doing such a great job. Please keep it up. Hang tough.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Oh, I like making you happy.
I didn't know about that.
This is a happy Anna Kasparian. You're welcome, YouTube.
Join the Dragon Squad by becoming a YouTube channel member. Click the join button below or sign up on tyt.com/join to get access to fun emojis, a member-only chat, exclusive shop TYT designs, ad-free watching, and so many other amazing perks. Plus, you get bragging rights for being part of the coolest community on the internet and help us drive real positive change in the world. The Dragon Squad awaits, so join today.
Can use a little bit of a softer touch, get myself in a little trouble. Bacon. Turkey. Norway.
Al-Qaeda. My God, Bart. That was DJ Bart on the ones and twos with that dope remix. Anyway, I hate that. I'm not even going to say it because I'm so angry with him. I'm not going to do anything positive or complimentary. Let's just move on. Let's get to our next story.
This was the last family standing in Ras Ain al-Auja, the largest Bedouin community in the southern Jordan Valley. Now they're being forced to leave a place that many generations of their family have called home because of relentless Israeli settler attacks. Burning homes, vandalizing property, and assaulting residents. The UN warned 72,000 farming and herding families in the occupied West Bank now require urgent emergency assistance.
To my fellow Americans, every time you get paid and you look at that pay stub, you see the amount of federal taxes that get taken out, just understand that you, my fellow American, are paying for the terror that you're seeing on the screen. Now, the Israeli government is continuing to facilitate escalating settler violence against Palestinians in the West Bank, which of course has nothing to do with Gaza or Hamas, but nonetheless, we have multiple examples to prove just how this violence and theft is being carried out by Israeli settlers. First, let's take a look at the West Bank village of Ras Ain al-Aija. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Ras Ain al-Aisha. There we go. This is where Palestinians have been forced out thanks to repeated attacks and harassment from Israeli settlers. So the Israeli government is refusing to do anything about it. In fact, I mean, look, most of the time the IDF stands by to provide protection for the settlers who are carrying out the violence against Palestinians. So to think the Israeli government would do anything to protect Palestinians, whether it's in Gaza or the West Bank, is laughable to me. They literally think it's okay to slaughter their children. They make justifications for it. But anyway, on January 19th, at least 77 Palestinian Bedouin and herding households comprising 375 people, including 186 children and 91 women, began dismantling their structures and relocating from the community following intensified attacks, threats, and intimidation by Israeli settlers, particularly during nighttime hours. Now, this is something we've been seeing on screen for the entirety of the Gaza genocide, right? And even though this is a different territory from Gaza, it didn't stop the Israelis from carrying out violence against Palestinians in the West Bank. So this followed the forcible displacement of 21 families. That's 110 people, including 61 children, on January 8th, after a series of settler attacks that included the physical assault and injury of an elderly man, cutting of solar electricity cables, and plowing of privately owned land. Because if Israeli settlers aren't stealing land, what good are they, right? That's all they do. They feel entitled to it. They're thieves. They're the worst of us, meaning the worst of us in the human race. But anyway, the village is surrounded by 4 illegal settlement outposts, all established since April of 2024. And in the past few years, violence perpetrated against Palestinians there has skyrocketed. So between 2017 and 2023, OCHA recorded only 2 settler attacks, resulting in casualties and or property damage in this community. But by contrast, 36 such attacks were documented in 2024 and at least 38 in 2025. Over the past 2 years, residents have endured nearly daily settler incursions, resulting in injuries, property damage, restricted access to pastures, and the nearby Al-Auja spring, and the theft of hundreds of livestock. A lot of this is documented. The videos are horrific and difficult to watch, but if you have interest in watching them, you can find them. One resident also said that if you sleep, the settlers will burn your house. So when Biden was willing to sit back and allow Israel to totally dismantle international law, to consistently violate international norms, rules of engagement, all of that. What that did is pave the way for Israel to do anything it wants. The reason why the attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank have increased in recent years is because the message we have sent to Israel specifically, because we have higher standards for every other country, but when it comes to Israel, no standards, no rules, no standards. You get to behave in any way you want. And if you allow genocidal creeps to do whatever they want, they're going to carry out genocide, they're going to carry out land theft, and they're going to brutalize innocent people. And that's what's been happening. So as angry as I am with Donald Trump, because he's been total horse crap on foreign policy, period, but especially on the topic of Israel, he's been terrible. Biden's handling paved the way for what we're seeing today. And I really need Democratic voters to continue applying the pressure on Democratic candidates and incumbents if they continue to provide support for a country that's supposed to represent the antithesis of American values. But sadly, I think they actually represent what our values really are at the moment. And I would like to move away from that because it's shameful, embarrassing, immoral, and inhumane. So what has law enforcement done about this? According to Israeli paper Haaretz, in the past 2 years, the Israeli military has often sided with the settlers. The police always came late, if at all, and never took meaningful action because the theft is the point. Now, because of the escalating violence, villagers filed a petition with the High Court of Justice just this past March. But the case wasn't actually heard until this week. That's how long it took. When the last 2 remaining families in the area were reportedly forced to leave thanks to relentless tormenting from the Israeli settlers. So the residents had requested that the court prohibit Israelis from entering the community's residential area and to provide protection to stop these attacks from happening, to stop the theft and harassment from the settlers. Their lawyer, Shlomo Lecker, also told the court that residents must be given a safe way to return to the homes they were forced out of. So Lecker also added that even if the court decides to allow the residents to return, the requested closure order will not suffice because the settlers do not obey court orders. Well, then they should be thrown in prison, right? That's the way you're supposed to handle it. You're supposed to throw them in prison. They are not following the law. But that's not what happens here. He asked the justices to instruct the defense establishment how to act in the area for about 60 days, during which the families will return to their land. But the Israeli government is essentially shooting that plan down because, again, the cruelty, the land theft, the terrorizing is the point. This is not something that's happening accidentally and the Israeli government doesn't know about it. They are facilitating it. They are facilitating it. The counsel for the state told the court that a plan for the villagers' return could be made. He also added, however, that the brigade commander in the area has determined there was no justification for an order closing it to Israelis. When the justices asked what actions the state could take so that the community could return on its land, the representative of the government, meaning the Israeli government, said that while there had been talk of stationing a permanent force there, that won't happen due to a shortage of military personnel. It's whatever excuse. You take it. This is what you should do. Take the excuse. Oh, Israelis are saying something. Okay, here. Liars. You shouldn't take anything they say at face value. The terrorism is the point. The land theft is the point. They are facilitating it. Anyway, while Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government sometimes pretends to condemn settler violence, in reality, they're directly helping to facilitate it. And I want to show you the goods. Okay, so as the Guardian explains, the foot soldiers in this war of Israeli expansion are young men, including minors, sent to outposts by the state under a program for at-risk youth. Settlers attack Palestinians using all-terrain vehicles and other equipment handed out at public ceremonies by politicians, including the far-right finance minister Bezalel Smotrich, himself a terrorist and settler. And I mean it when I say terrorist. So look, Palestinians don't have weapons. And the Israeli government is handing out weapons to Israeli settlers. So this asymmetrical situation that we see playing out in Gaza plays out across the board when it comes to how the Israelis treat the Palestinians. So you give these terrorists firearms to use against a population of people who have no weapons. And so they get forced out of their homes. They become homeless because these grotesque settlers steal their homes, steal their land. And we are paying for it. We, the American people, are paying for it. And government ministries have also directly funded the illegal farming outposts by providing settlers there with subsidies for raising livestock. And believe it or not, things are getting even worse than they already were, because just this Monday, Defense Minister Israel Katz announced that he is advancing the legalization of 140 farming outposts, illegal farming outposts in the West Bank. And that's according to the Times of Israel. Israeli papers tend to report the truth because the Israeli population likes this. They celebrate it. So the Israeli publications don't have to hide what the government's actually doing. It's amazing, it really is. He says he has the full support of Netanyahu and Smotrich to do this, by the way, which doesn't surprise me. Speaking in a video message to a conference of appreciation for illegal farming outposts, Israel Katz lauded those involved in those endeavors as the pioneers of our days and praised them for their work in weakening the Palestinians' effort to establish themselves in the region. This wonderful and important project is the direct continuation of our pioneering settlement across the generations from the beginnings of Zionism until today. So, do people hate Israel because they're anti-Semitic, or do they hate Israel because of the behavior of the Israeli government? I mean, if you're a reasonable person, you know the answer to that. It's the latter. I've been doing this job for almost 20 years. I have never been accused of being an anti-Semite once until this genocide in Gaza started, and I started, speaking my mind, yes, aggressively, and clearly stating why I'm making the arguments I'm making, providing the receipts. But the bad actors want to just kind of sum it all up as, oh, you're an anti-Semite. It's not about the innocent people that are getting slaughtered. It's about my feelings, and I feel aggrieved that you're criticizing my favorite country. Well, then F off. F off. And if you think, oh, you care about the people of Gaza, but you're not talking about Iran, or I'm gonna talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. How about that? I'm gonna talk about whatever I want to talk about. There are people suffering in many countries all across the globe. We don't aid and abet that suffering unless, of course, it's Israel. In that case, we will literally take our own people, throw them on the back burner as they're struggling, and take our resources to help Israel carry out genocide, land theft, empire expansion. We will spend our resources on fighting wars on behalf of Israel, as we've been doing for many decades now. That's why people hate Israel. I don't care if you're Jewish. I don't care if you're Christian. I don't care if you're Muslim. I don't care. I don't care at all. Because I understand the complexities of human beings, and I understand that making generalizations about an entire group of people based on their religion or ethnicity is what stupid people do. Stupid people also try to shut people like me up by smearing me as an anti-Semite when I am clearly being critical of a genocidal regime in the Middle East. And that's Israel. And I'm gonna keep running my mouth about it because I don't think our country should be supporting Israel with our resources or anything else. I think we need to decouple. Anyway, according to reporting from Israeli media, only an incident that had a clear intent to kill would be considered a terror attack by the settlers. Under the new definition, arson attacks on buildings or unoccupied vehicles will be classified as a serious incident. Cool, so does that go both ways? Can Palestinians commit arson against Israeli homes or vehicles? And that's not considered terrorism. It's just a serious incident. Worst people on the planet. Anyway, we have to find solutions to this very real problem we've been dealing with. And who I'm about to interview is a gentleman who believes he has the answer. So when we come back, we'll talk to the founder of PAC. We'll talk about what that is and what he's trying to accomplish when we return. I don't care if you're Christian. In fact, I will fight for you to have your religious liberty and practice your Christianity. I believe in that. I don't believe in Christianity, which means that you do not get to dictate the way I live my life based on your religion. I don't care what the Bible says. You have every right in the world. All those women who identify with your religion have every right in the world to not get an abortion, to not take birth control, but they do not have the right to dictate my life and what I decide to do with my body. I don't care about your goddamn religion. I'm so tired of having nonstop conversations about what the Bible says. You live your life in the way that you interpret the Bible. Again, I don't care, but you don't get to take the Bible and tell me, well, the Bible says this in this chapter, in this verse. I don't care. I don't care. I don't believe in it. And I have the right, based on our Constitution, to not believe in it.
No part of Gaza has been left unscathed. Ain't a whole lot left. I don't know why they need any more bombs. Let us be clear. The United States provided $18 billion in military aid to Israel. Netanyahu indiscriminate bombardment have killed more than 50,000 civilians, 60% of whom are women, children, paramedics, and journalists. All of this is against basic human decency. You don't starve children with absolutely no humanitarian aid getting into Gaza. It is a war crime. It is illegal for the United States government to provide Israel with more offensive weapons. History will not forgive us.
We've been on our phones too much. I feel like we just need to touch grass or something.
I told you. I mean, you know what? Let's actually do it. Let's touch the grass.
Andrew Yang? It's not racist, right? It's him.
Yes, it is I, Andrew Yang, out here giving money away as usual.
Wait, but literally?
Do you use a phone? Noble Mobile will cut your wireless bill in half every month, and you get paid even more if you log off, look up, and touch grass.
Oh, I actually have some grass if you...
I don't think that's the kind of grass.
Not that kind of grass, unfortunately.
Whoa, wait, what the...
Whoa. I guess that kind of grass works too. All grass works.
All grass and we get cash?
Wait, did you see that, babe?
Noble Mobile, make it rain, girl, make it rain, make it. That didn't rain so good, but now it's raining good.
Corruption, injustice, the system is rigged against you. Every day we're blasted by a flurry of terrible news from every angle, which can make it challenging to stay positive and know how to fight back. The Damage Report is your solution. I'm Johnny DeRola, and my daily morning show cuts through the noise and exposes the real damage being done to our country, the world, and how we can fight back against it. Corporate greed crushing workers? We'll name names. Politicians selling you out for their corporate overlords? We've got the receipts. Climate disaster, economic collapse, the rise of fascism. No spin, no establishment talking points, just the truth that you need to survive and resist. But it's not all doom and gloom. We'd love to have you join the Dragon Squad, our community of positive-minded activists who turn the day's news into positive action. With new episodes every weekday, listen to The Damage Report to get honest news, unflinching commentary, and daring coverage you won't find anywhere else. Listen to The Damage Report on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, because understanding the damage is the first step to fixing it.
Welcome back to TYT. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian, and we're about to have an awesome interview. So we talk about the US relationship with Israel quite a bit on this show, and it's no surprise to anyone who watches the show regularly that one of the biggest issues that both Cenk and I have is the fact that you have this small foreign government exerting undue influence over our political system. I mean, to the point where it doesn't matter if the administration in charge is Democrat or Republican, they will do Israel's bidding. So what do we, the people, what do Americans do about it? And joining us now is Michael Rechtenwald, who is a professor, author, and founder of the Anti-Zionist America PAC. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Anna.
My pleasure. So I've been curious about your project for some time. I have some potential concerns, which we'll get to in just a minute. But I think that, you're coming at this in good faith. I think you see what's happening with our government and the undue influence that Israel has over our government. You want to do something about that. So let me just start off by asking you, what does As a PAC seek to do?
Well, in simple terms, we seek to de-Zionize the US government by removing from the political class all the Zionists in government. And that way we can, thwart the efforts of Israel to continue extorting taxpayers. And, I think, our political class, as you mentioned, I think is blackmailed first and bribed as well. And we're trying to remove those people from office by running candidates that are anti-Zionist or non-Zionist.
Just on the blackmail point real quick, the Epstein, the latest tranche of heavily redacted Epstein files came out just last week on Friday. And there's a lot of talk about how Epstein was likely working for intelligence, very likely Mossad and the CIA. He was obviously making all sorts of deals on behalf of Israel, especially when it came to procurement of cyber weapons and things like that, and cybersecurity. But, for people who think that's like crazy and outlandish, there's no way that's going on. I just want to remind you all that Benjamin Netanyahu, of all people, in the middle of the negotiations over a two-state solution, attempted to blackmail Bill Clinton with dirt about the Monica Lewinsky scandal. This is prior to it being public knowledge. So the blackmail definitely exists, and we have a clear example of that. And Israeli papers wrote about it. In fact, I caught that story again today, researching over at the Times of Israel. So with that in mind, when did you first realize that Israel has the type of influence over our government that it does?
Well, I mean, I thought it did for quite a while, going back all the way back to John F. Kennedy, really. But I think that with the Trump administration, the mask really came off. And we saw, nothing but this obsequious observance to Israel on everything. And not only in deed, but also in word. The constant supplications to Israel and the constant deference to Israeli interests. It became so obvious. And then with the Gaza genocide, I thought, this political class, it must be completely in Israel's control to be doing what they're doing. And I just couldn't stand by and watch this without doing something about it. I mean, all the efforts that people are making are noble. Everything needs to be done, but I figure this is one of the necessary, essential parts of the puzzle in order to change this situation, to de-Zionize the government so that we stop the depredations that Israel, depredations that Israel enacts on its neighbors, and most immediately its Palestinian neighbors. If we didn't have the United States enabling Israel like this, they wouldn't be able to do this.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. So far we are in total agreement. Now, you come from the right side of the political spectrum, and I think it's important for our audience to know that. And I'm actually really curious about what you've seen with Republican voters in the country and whether you've seen a bit of an evolution when it comes to that voting base on this specific topic. Because I was under the impression that the only people in the country who cared about the influence of Israel over our politics was the left. But I'm actually noticing that a lot of Republican voters are actually very concerned about it. Is that a new thing, or do you think this has always existed, but I was just kind of in the dark about it?
No, I think it's pretty new. And it's very well known that the left has been much more organized about Zionism for years, for decades, and has been after this for quite some time. I come from the right, but I'm more or less a libertarian. So I'm a right libertarian. And as such, everything that's being done for Israel and by Israel is a violation of our basic premise or principle of the non-aggression principle, which they are violating regularly. And to the point about the right, and I saw, well, first of all, I figured that, look, this problem has to be solved partly from the right because it is the right wing that is the bulwark for Israel. Not only the voting for them, but also their rhetorical backup. It's providing political cover for them no matter what they do. So I thought, we need something that attacks this not only from the left, but from the right, that goes after Republican candidates and goes after Republican office holders to try to break up this unbelievably solid block of Zionists that run the country.
So through ASAPAC, the goal here, the objective is to, I'm guessing, primary incumbents who are pro Israel or Israel first, and do so with candidates who have sworn off that type of Israeli influence. Tell me a little bit about the types of candidates. Like, what kind of standards do you have when you're kind of testing whether a candidate is a good fit to be supported by ASAPAC?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing is, of course, that they swear off any Zionist or Israeli money from PACs or lobbies. That they promise not to take any Israeli or Zionist money. The second is they have to promise not to send arms or aid to Israel. And we have a questionnaire that we ask all the candidates to answer. It's like a 19-point questionnaire where it's basically yes or no, but a lot of them like to expound quite prolifically and tell us everything they think. And it's, we can tell from the candidates' responses just how serious they are. And then, of course, we also are interested in their viability. We can't support, we'll endorse some people that we don't think have a chance just for symbolic value. But we really want to support economically, financially, candidates that have a shot. So, for example, we're running a candidate is running, and we're backing him in Florida against Randy Fine. It's Aaron Brown, and he's primarying Randy Fine. And the only way they're going to get an anti-Zionist in office from that district is if he's a Republican. So it's the only choice. And then on the other hand, so just to show that we are nonpartisan, we're also supporting Jose Vega, who's running in New York against Richie Torres.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's amazing. Yeah. I thought you were mostly focusing on, red districts, but you're doing this in a bipartisan fashion.
Yes,
that's really good to hear. I love that. Yeah.
And we also supporting a libertarian candidate, and we're going to be supporting a green candidate very soon, Greg Stoker, who was on one of the flotillas.
Oh, wow.
We're also supporting Anthony Aguilar, who was the whistleblower on the Gaza humanitarian aid, or whatever they call that obscene misnomer of an organization. He's the one that blew the whistle, saying they were luring Palestinians to these supposed food distribution sites and then shooting them. So we've got some strong candidates that we're running and that we're supporting, I should say, and we try to be utterly impartial about party. I don't care about party, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian. Do you have the right principles, and do you have any chance of actually overthrowing the candidate in office?
Now, look, you have a significant uphill battle here, because when you think about the war chest that the Zionist movement provides for these candidates, I mean, it's very daunting to think about raising enough money to compete with them. But how has the fundraising been so far?
It's been really strong. We released like a introductory video in November, and it went viral, and it brought in a lot of donations. And they continue to this day. We're doing pretty well. I would say that if we could get like 50 million Americans to donate $5, we'll be in the game big time. Now, we're not going to get 50 million Americans just because that's not possible. So if we get 1 million Americans to donate $250, then we are in the game against AIPAC, believe it. And because I've looked at the numbers and what they're spending, and we can compete with that. We're trying to pool the resources of Americans. It's a grassroots movement, and we know we don't have billionaires to throw at money at us, but American concerned citizens, a grassroots base, is very interested in this problem and wants to overturn it, wants to solve this problem. And so we're counting on that grassroots. And speaking of left, right, and all that, look, our idea is that we need to punch up, not across the aisle. We need to punch up against the ruling class. Let's be real. I mean, the ruling class is a Zionist ruling class. So that's what we're up to, and that's our attitude, and that's what our philosophy is.
So I have to ask you, because there are people in the media space, especially, where you'll hear the arguments they're making against Zionism, and then you dig a little deeper and you will find some hate toward Jewish people, right? Sure. And I don't subscribe to any of that, because first of all, some of the strongest anti-Zionist voices are Jewish, right? So David Sachs, Jeffrey Sachs, I'm sorry, wrong Sachs, but yeah, Jeffrey Sachs is amazing.
Of course, Finkelstein, of course.
Finkelstein is amazing, yes. So what would you say to people who might be hesitant to work with someone who's not on the left, right? Whether they're libertarian or right, they're worried that what motivates them isn't necessarily concern about Zionism having undue influence over our politicians, but through dislike of Judaism or Jewish people.
Well, I mean, the PAC itself has a very clear standard on that. We don't talk about the Jews or anything like that. This isn't about Judaism. We make it very clear. Zionism is a political ideology. Arguably, from some of the people that we're associated with that are Jewish, like the Voice of Rabbis, and other types of groups, they say Zionism has hijacked as Judaism. And so I will believe that. And so we're not anti-Judaism or anti-Jewish. We're not anti-Semitic. We make clear on the website what Zionism means to us, which is simply from the American standpoint, Zionism means the bribery and blackmail of our political class and the extortion of American taxpayers for the benefit of Israel. That's it. We're not, and we also say we don't even take a stand on whether Israel should exist. So there's no from the river to the sea rhetoric at all. It's simply about the internal politics of the United States.
Okay, that's great. So I do have to ask you about, two tweets, if you don't mind. And
okay.
Look, I love what you're doing, and I'm not trying to do like, ooh, gotcha journalism, because I think, based on this conversation, I can tell that you actually want to do something to save our country and the ridiculous debt that we're in as a result of these wars that we fought on behalf of Israel. Like, it's a real problem. So,
and I'd like to spare some lives too in the Middle East.
Exactly. So I'm on your side, but this is cause for concern for me personally, and I'm sure to other people. And I want you to be able to kind of clear it up. So you had tweeted in October 10th, 2024, the Jewish elite must be stopped. They must be physically removed. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, well, that was a joke, actually. And it was a play on Hans Hermann Hoppe, who's a libertarian philosopher and thinker, where he talks about physical removal. It's a meme on X. And this is where context is all important. And people would see that, not understand the context, where he jokes about physically removing people from a from a private property society. And there's this meme with a helicopter dropping people out of it, stuff like that. So it was kind of a joke. What I meant was that, and I'm talking about what Finkelstein calls directly the Jewish supremacist billionaire class, which he says is running the country. And so, it isn't targeting Jews per se. This is a particular milieu, a very small section of people who have a tremendous amount of power, like the Adelsons, like the people that are attacking Thomas Massey. Yeah, all those.
No, I get what you're saying.
And the rest. So that's what I was referring to, but largely it was tongue in cheek. It was a play, and it was meant for people that understand the Hans Hermann Hoppe meme.
Have you talked to Norm Finkelstein at all about as a PAC? Like, is it something he's interested in?
We have reached out to him. We haven't been able to contact him yet, but if we did, we would welcome him on our board. We would love to have Max Blumenthal on the board. These are people that we would welcome with open arms. I think Max Blumenthal is one of the most brilliant anti-Zionists there is, and the most strident. And
he's pretty strident. There's no question about that.
Strident, and so is Norman Finkelstein, very strident. They have on his website, on his Facebook page, people have posted the ASAPAC stuff, the videos and stuff like that. So I think he's probably aware of us. We'd like to get in touch with him and work with him, absolutely. And we would love his advice, his knowledge base. I think we need to have a think tank really to do this work. It's more than a PAC. I think we need to become like develop a think tank about how to approach this problem, because there's so many layers to it: rhetoric, money, political cover, all that's being done. So yeah, we would love to have somebody like Finkelstein or Max Blumenthal involved.
All right, I'll end on a broader question because I am curious about this. I think that the bribery that is now legalized and baked into our political system is terrible. I think it's the virus that has dismantled our democratic process. But we're dealing with the system that we have. And I would know, since I work so closely with Cenk, how difficult it is to undo the damage of these Supreme Court rulings and push for a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics.
Yes.
But is that something that you would want to strive for, getting the money out entirely?
I would like nothing better than to be able to dissolve this PAC if money was out of politics. That's my preference. Get money completely out of politics. But in the meanwhile, we got to be realistic, and this is the game we're in. And so this is kind of a realist position that, look, money is completely controlling the political class in the United States. So what are we going to do? Just let it happen, or are we going to try to counter it? And that's what we're trying to do, is to counter it. But nothing would please me more than to say all of this lobbying, all these PACs, all of these special interests, like, that really came about through Citizens United in 2010, which is an interesting point because, they said that spending money was expression. And yet 37 states in the United States ban BDS, which is also expression. So, we're looking to get standing in one or more of these states and to sue these states for violating the First Amendment.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that. I mean, I love that you did that juxtaposition of like the Supreme Court calling money in politics speech, but when it comes to like voting with your dollar, essentially boycotting Israeli businesses, that's illegal now in much of this country. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get a state contract, so we need to get somebody that tries to get a state contract to do something and gets turned down because they won't sign the anti-BDS pledge or whatever it is in that particular state.
Well, Michael, I appreciate that you're looking for solutions. It's a difficult problem to solve. And look, right now it's obviously about Israel because of how influential Israel is in our own country. But this applies to every foreign country. No foreign country should be prioritized over the American people. So thank you for your time and good luck.
Thanks so much, Anna. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk with you.
All
right, everyone, we're going to take a brief break. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Epstein's investment into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. That's led to a lot of turmoil online. And we'll share all that with you when we come back. All right, this is my second announcement about TYT's partner, which will definitely save you money. And of course, that's Noble Mobile. You can learn more about switching over to a more affordable mobile service by going to tyt.com/switch. All right, lots of comments to get to. I'm actually going to prioritize the super chat since some of you folks might not be TYT members. So let's go to Seventh Fire Stephanie, who says Marjorie Taylor Greene could have and should have read the names of the perpetrators on the congressional floor while she had some immunity. In my opinion, she's just one of the many who let the victims down. I wish that she didn't leave Congress because of her spat with Trump. I think she should have stayed. She should have fought. That would have been far more effective. But I don't know what she went through behind closed doors, because I do know that Trump does have cultish supporters who will threaten you. So maybe she was really fearful for her life. I have no idea. But I hear you. I think it's a valid criticism. Thomas Daniel says, Anna, your opinion, please. Should Alan Dershowitz be nicknamed Dershbag or Douchewitz? I think they're both fire, actually. They can both apply, right? Sometimes I'll be into the Dershbag. Sometimes I want to do Douchewitz, depends. But he's just, can you imagine thinking that Alan Dershowitz is compelling enough to build an audience by just booking him on your shows on CBS all the time, which is what Barry Weiss literally thought. Anyway, Let's read some more comments. Let's go to our members section where we have with it gal. It's like Israeli settlers get to act out the purge on a never-ending basis. It certainly feels that way. Eddie Jameson says Bart is killing it today with the Trump drops. He sure is. He always does, especially on Wednesdays though, because there's the house music infusion. Amy Meganson says, don't forget about how Israel talks about the US. Not only have they bought our politicians, but they have blackmailed them too. Essentially, they have chosen their interests before the country, meaning the politicians. Yeah, obviously. Welcome to all of our new members. Wow. So we have Red Fletch 79 Duck, Greenway Set, D Jenin 820, George Diaz, just a human being. Totally get it. Clay Smith, Elizabeth there, and Clam Pack F. Thank you so much for being members. Thank you for the support. We are going to have a members only bonus episode after the show today, so tune in for that. I gotta say, what makes the current moment that we're currently in, okay, a little easier is knowing that I'm not alone in feeling the way that I'm feeling. So I just want to thank our member Jack Callahan for writing in to say, thanks for reporting on this moral rot. It disgusts me as it disgusts you. The public needs to hear what our leaders are doing. Totally agree. And it feels good to know I'm not alone in this. Joseph writes in and says, thank you, Anna, thank you for bringing the suffering of the Palestinian people into the open, and who is funding it. You are their mouth for peace. You are an awesome and brave woman. Thank you. I'm just doing my job. I don't think I'm brave or anything. Although I do understand that people get threatened in a multitude of ways, as I have, as my husband has, if you speak out against Israel. Hopeful Heart and Open Eyes says, I'm overworked and underpaid, and I'm paying for that, meaning the settler violence and all the violence that's being carried out right now through Israel. Oh, and everything else too, taxation and tariffs without representation. This is economic slavery, and we can't get bare necessities. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. All right, let's do our final story before we move on over to our members only bonus episode. I want to talk about what Jeffrey Epstein was investing his money in prior to dying in prison. So let's get to it. Jeffrey Epstein invested into the crypto marketplace known as Coinbase back in 2014, which we now know about thanks to the latest tranche of Epstein files that were released by the Department of Justice. Now, Epstein, in fact, was aware of Bitcoin as early as 2011, and he saw it as an opportunity, as many did. And so that year, he wrote the following in an email. Amir, the Bitcoin idea is brilliant, but I suggest has some serious downsides, as I'm sure you are aware. If you can find time, please call my office, and then some of the email is redacted. So look, the thing about crypto, well, the way crypto was sold to us is like this decentralized currency, and it's important to like skirt government takeovers and tyranny. Like anytime anything from the tech sector claims that they're democratizing something or they're trying to make life better for ordinary people, just know that it's a lie. The thing with cryptocurrency is a lot of international criminal stuff happens through crypto. So would I be surprised about Epstein being interested in cryptocurrency? No, I would not be surprised by that. But it seems like a lot of people online were surprised by it. Let me continue. So look, it's unclear what he was referring to specifically in that last email that I read to you. But a few years later in 2014, Peter Thiel wrote to Epstein and asked the following: do you think this is the first step in upping the anti-BTC pressure? So I don't know what he meant by that. And there might be smarter people out there who do know. But in response, Epstein wrote this. First, it appears that there is little agreement on what Bitcoin is. Store of, or interest intrinsic value, if any, currency, property, architecture, payment system, etc., conflicting goals, anonymous but transparent public ledger. Like the continuum now in the gender classification, fitting things into narrow boxes seems old school. Man presenting as woman smells like property presenting as currency. Anyway, more when I see you. By the way, BTC, for those who don't know, means Bitcoin. But when I say I don't know what he was referring to, I don't know what he means in upping the anti-BTC pressure. Is that the anti-BTC pressure coming from the United States government? Because there was none of that. Maybe China? I mean, China did go after crypto. I don't know specifically what he's referring to. But anyway, that same year in 2014, Epstein invested, remember this number, $3 million into Coinbase, which is the largest crypto exchange based in the United States. And so that company was founded in 2011, and it currently has an evaluation of $50 billion. So here's how Epstein's investment came to be. So he was corresponding with a man named Brock Pierce, more on him in a minute, and he was an investor over at Blockchain Capital, okay? Now, that's a venture capital fund that focuses on Bitcoin and crypto. Pierce himself was an early investor in Bitcoin. And so in December of 2014, Pierce wrote the following in an email to Jeffrey Epstein. I have gotten us allocation if you're interested and able to move fast. Are you available to talk to the co-founder who is spearheading the financing today? And that same month, guy by the name of Fred Ursum, he is the founder of Coinbase, sent the following email to Brock Pierce and Brad Stevens, one of Pierce's colleagues. Here's what they wrote. Would be nice to meet Epstein if convenient. And here's how the investment materialized. Days later, Stevens emailed Coinbase to say that blockchain partners would invest $3.25 million in Coinbase, according to the documents. He then forwarded wire transfer instructions from Coinbase to an attorney who worked with Epstein in an email that referred to a $3 million investment. The attorney replied that it would be made by IGO LLC, a Virgin Islands company that belonged to Jeffrey Epstein. That's Jeffrey Epstein's LLC, okay? An internal valuation report on Epstein's assets at the end of 2014 released by the DOJ lists a $3 million purchase of Coinbase via IGO LLC under a section for cash transactions. So Epstein's investment of $3 million was less than 1% stake in Coinbase, and he was not guaranteed a leadership position at the company. It's unknown if Fred Ursum ever even met Epstein, but Brock Pierce continued to correspond with Epstein and spend some time with him. Now, the two of them made plans to meet up on several occasions. In 2018, Brad Stevens asked to buy half of Epstein's Coinbase investment. And 1 month later, Epstein did sell his stake to Blockchain Capital for $15 million. Okay, so his investment went from $3 million to $15 million. That's about 10 times what Epstein spent on the initial investment. And so in 2014, Epstein also stated that he would invest $500,000 in a Bitcoin company known as Blockstream. He even invited the company's co-founders, Adam Back and Austin Hill, to visit his island. In an email exchange with Epstein, though, he alluded to tentative plans they'd made to meet in New York that Sunday, but said it was a no-go because of commitments on the West Coast, but added that Friday, Saturday on the island are still possible. In a separate email from Epstein sent to early Bitcoin developer Amir Taki on April 19th, 2014, Epstein told Taki that he'd just had Andy Back, likely referring to Blockstream co-founder, on my island this weekend. So Back, who now serves as the CEO of Blockstream, is now facing calls to resign. We'll see if that happens. But just incredible. Unsurprising though, unsurprising. I mean, this is what Epstein would have crypto on his radar for obvious reasons. And so I think calls for this guy to resign. I think that's fine. But more importantly, I would like actual investigations, not sham investigations, but actual investigations into Epstein's co-conspirators. Because those co-conspirators exist and they walk among us free after potentially engaging in some of the worst criminality imaginable, which is the violation and rape of children. So that would be the appropriate way to go about this. But unfortunately, we don't have a government that's looking out for the best interests of the American people. And that's a damn shame. It really is. Anyway, in our bonus episode today, we're gonna have some fun. For instance, we're gonna talk about Jeanine Pirro. She is a mess of epic proportions, and I'll explain why. In fact, a lot of Republican voters and a lot of Republican organizations not happy with her. So we'll get to that. We'll also talk a little bit about, what's currently transpiring with Grok, because it turns out that Elon Musk's AI model might be intentionally victimizing people in some of the worst ways. And I'll explain how and why. I'll show you the receipts. You don't want to miss that. And in the meantime, since we have a little bit of time left, I'm going to read a few of our member comments. I'll read more of them during our bonus episode for our members. Christina Salazar writes and says, I love this. Sounds like these candidates are going to be right up my alley. I already have a set of questions set up when deciding whether to vote or support a politician. And this PAC follows 2 of those 4 questions. So that's a comment about as a PAC, which you guys should check out. Look, you should always do some digging, always be skeptical and do the legwork, do your homework, make sure that you're supporting candidates who aren't just talking the talk, but you have some evidence that they mean what they say and will fulfill their promises should they get elected. Boomer Cat Dragon says, great interview, Anna. Thanks. Thank you. I appreciate it. Disruptor says, I used to be libertarian, but unfortunately they don't have a suitable answer to dealing with corporate monopolies. I do have a lot of disagreements with libertarians when it comes to economic policy. There's no question about that. But libertarians are the most vociferous when it comes to not getting involved and entangled in foreign wars. And I fully agree with them on that. Anyway, bonus episode for our members is next, tyt.com/join. And we'll see you there.